Hello everybody, my name is Leslie and I work at the Clinton Public Library. Today, this is our first chapter video, and in this video we are going to be reading the first chapter of The Hidden Oracle, which is book 1 of the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. I personally love this series. I grew up as a Percy Jackson kid and I read all the Rick Riordan books as they come out still, just to keep in touch. It feels like keeping in touch with old friends at this point, honestly. But this series, I think, is extremely underrated. I think that this series is better than Heroes of Olympus and better than Magnus Chase. It might be tied with Kane Chronicles, and then the best is obviously Percy Jackson and the Olympians because it's peak. No one's ever going to beat it. It is what it is. I feel like this series has a lot of the humor missing from the Heroes of Olympus series. It's got a very Percy Jackson-ish snark to it, and I think that the arc that Apollo goes through in this series is honestly phenomenally written. I think it's wonderful. So the plot of this is that after the Heroes of Olympus series, after the events that took place then, Apollo is punished by Zeus and is sent back down to Earth as a human. And this time he manifests as a teenage boy named Lester Papadopoulus, who has almost no skills to speak of, and he has to learn to rely on himself and learn to take care of others and really find value in community. And I think that it's really, really well written. Genuinely, this is one of my favorite series, young adult series, I should say, that I have ever read. Apollo is the main character. It's told from his perspective, and very, very funny perspective, but I also think that him being immortal and having that immortal wisdom and that backlog of knowledge is also really well done. And because this is coming out on June 25th, it's towards the end of Pride Month, I thought it would be good to do another queer book for the end of Pride Month. Apollo is written to be bisexual, pansexual, or and he also doesn't have a very strong connection to gender. I think this is a really great way to portray the Greek gods because they're notorious for shifting forms and not really being in one body or another. And they also are known to have been romantically involved with people of all kinds of genders and all kinds of representations. So this book series, I think, does a really great job of that. I think it's very realistically done. Rick Riordan has a bad habit of thinking that he can't write diversity super well, and he always tries, which I give him credit for. But he did a phenomenal job, and he always learns from his past mistakes and the things that we have told him as a fandom, as a community, that he needs to improve upon. So I think that this book series is a really great example of that. It's kind of a shining gem among all of his work. So without further ado, let's get into the first chapter. You'll notice that the chapter title is a haiku, and all of the chapter titles in this entire series are haikus because Apollo is the god of poetry. So without further ado, let's get into it. The Trials of Apollo, Book 1, The Hidden Oracle, by Rick Riordan. Chapter 1, titled, Hoodlums Punch My Face. I would smite them if I could. Mortality Blows. My name is Apollo. I used to be a god. In my 4,612 years, I have done many things. I inflicted a plague on the Greeks who besieged Troy. I blessed Babe Ruth with 3 home runs in a Game 4 of 1926 World Series. I visited my wrath upon Britney Spears at the 2007 MTV Video Music Awards. But in all my immortal life, I never before crash-landed in a dumpster. I'm not even sure how it happened. I simply woke up falling. Skyscrapers spiraled in and out of view, flames streamed off my body. I tried to fly. I tried to change into a cloud or teleport across the world or do 100 other things that should have been easy for me, but I just kept falling. I plunged into a narrow canyon between 2 buildings and bam! Is anything sadder than the sound of a god hitting a pile of garbage bags? I lay groaning and aching in the open dumpster. My nostrils burned with the stench of rancid bologna and used diapers. My ribs felt broken, though that shouldn't have been possible. My mind stewed in confusion, but one memory floated to the surface. The voice of my father, Zeus. Your fault. Your punishment. I realized what had happened to me, and I sobbed in despair. Even for a god of poetry such as myself, it is difficult to describe how I felt. How could you, a mere mortal, possibly understand? Imagine being stripped of all your clothes, then blasted with a fire hose in front of a laughing crowd. Imagine the ice-cold water filling your mouth and lungs, the pressure bruising your skin, turning your joints to putty. Imagine feeling helpless, ashamed, completely vulnerable, publicly and brutally stripped of everything that makes you you. My humiliation was worse than that. Your fault. Zeus's voice rang in my head. No, I cried miserably. No, it wasn't, please. Nobody answered. On either side of me, rusty fire escapes zigzagged up brick walls. Above, the winter sky was gray and unforgiving. I tried to remember the details of my sentencing. Had my father told me how long this punishment would last? What was I supposed to do to regain his favor? My memory was too fuzzy. I could barely recall what Zeus looked like, much less why he'd decided to toss me to Earth. There had been a war with the giants, I thought. The gods had been caught off guard, embarrassed, almost defeated. The only thing I knew for certain, my punishment was unfair. Zeus needed someone to blame, so of course he'd picked the handsomest, most talented, most popular god in the pantheon. Me. I lay in the garbage, staring at the label inside the dumpster lid. For pickup, call 1555 Stenchy. Zeus will reconsider, I told myself. He's just trying to scare me. Any moment he will yank me back to Olympus and let me off with a warning. Yes. My voice sounded hollow and desperate. Yes, that's it. I tried to move. I wanted to be on my feet when Zeus came to apologize. My ribs throbbed. My stomach clenched. I clawed the rim of the dumpster and managed to drag myself over the side. I toppled out and landed on my shoulder, which made a cracking sound against the asphalt. "Aragony!" I whimpered through the pain. "Stand up! Stand up!" Getting to my feet was not easy. My head spun. I almost passed out from the effort. I stood in a dead-end alley. About 50 feet away, the only exit opened onto a street with grimy storefronts for a bail bondsman's office and a pawn shop. I was somewhere on the west side of Manhattan, I guessed, or perhaps Crown Heights in Brooklyn. Zeus must have been really angry with me. I inspected my new body. I appeared to be a teenaged Caucasian male, clad in sneakers, blue jeans, and a green polo shirt. How utterly drab! I felt sick, weak, and so human. I will never understand how you mortals tolerate it. You live your entire life trapped in a sack of meat, unable to enjoy simple pleasures like changing into a hummingbird or dissolving into pure light. And now, heavens help me, I was one of you, just another meat sack. I fumbled through my pants pockets, hoping I still had the keys to my sun chariot. No such luck. I found a cheap nylon wallet containing $100 in American currency, lunch money for my first day as a mortal, perhaps, along with a New York State junior driver's license featuring a photo of a dorky, curly-haired teen who could not possibly be me, with the name Lester Papadopoulus. The cruelty of Zeus knew no bounds. I peered into the dumpster, hoping my bow, quiver, and lyre might have fallen to earth with me. I would have settled for my harmonica. There was nothing. I took a deep breath. Cheer up, I told myself. I must have retained some of my godly abilities. Matters could be worse. A raspy voice called, "Hey, Cade! Look at this loser." Blocking the alley's exit were two young men, one squat and platinum blonde, the other tall and red-headed. Both wore oversized hoodies and baggy pants. Serpentine tattoos covered their necks. All they were missing were the words, "I'm a thug," printed in large letters across their forehead. The redhead zeroed in on the wallet in my hand. "Now, be nice, Mikey. This guy looks friendly enough." He grinned and pulled a hunting knife from his belt. "In fact, I bet he wants to give us all his money." I blame my disorientation for what happened next. I knew my immortality had been stripped away, but I still considered myself the mighty Apollo, One cannot change one's way of thinking as easily as one might, say, turn into a snow leopard. Also, on previous occasions when Zeus had punished me for making me mortal, yes, it had happened twice before, I had retained massive strength and at least some of my godly powers. I assumed the same would be true now. I was not going to allow two young mortal ruffians to take Lester Papadopoulus' wallet. I stood up straight, hoping Cade and Mikey would be intimidated by my regal bearing and divine beauty. Surely those qualities could not be taken from me, no matter what my driver's license photo looked like. I ignored the warm dumpster juice trickling down my neck. I am Apollo, I announced. You mortals have three choices. Offer me tribute, flee, or be destroyed. I wanted my words to echo through the alley, shake the towers of New York, and cause the skies to rain smoking ruin. None of that happened. On the word destroyed, my voice squeaked. The redhead Cade grinned even wider. I thought how amusing it would be if I could make the snake tattoos around his neck come alive and strangle him to death. What do you think, Mikey? He asked his friend. Should we give this guy tribute? Mikey scowled. With his bristly blonde hair, his cruel small eyes, and his thick frame, he reminded me of the monstrous sow that terrorized the village of Cromion back in the old days. Not feeling the tribute, Cade. His voice sounded like he'd been eating lit cigarettes. What were the other options? Fleeing? Said Cade. Nah, said Mikey. Being destroyed? Mikey snorted. How about we destroy him instead? Cade flipped his knife and caught it by the handle. I can live with that. After you. I slipped the wallet into my back pocket. I raised my fists. I did not like the idea of flattening mortals into flesh waffles, but I was sure I could do it. Even in my weakened state, I would be far stronger than any human. I warned you, I said. My powers are far beyond your comprehension. Mikey cracked his knuckles. Uh-huh. He lumbered forward. As soon as he was in range, I struck. I put all my wrath into that punch. It should have been enough to vaporize Mikey and leave a thug-shaped impression on the asphalt. Instead, he ducked, which I found quite annoying. I stumbled forward. I have to say that when Prometheus fashioned you humans out of clay, he did a shoddy job. Mortal legs are clumsy. I tried to compensate, drawing on my boundless reserves of agility, but Mikey kicked me in the back. I fell on my divine face. My nostrils inflated like airbags, and my ears popped. The taste of copper filled my mouth. I rolled over, groaning, and found two blurry thugs staring down at me. Mikey, said Cade, are you comprehending this guy's power? Nah, said Mikey, I'm not comprehending it. Fools, I croaked. I will destroy you. Yeah, sure, Cade tossed away his knife. But first, I think we'll stomp you. Cade raised his boot over my face, and the world went black.